My mom kicked me out after having kids with my stepdad. Years later, she demanded I pay for their college. When I refused, she stalked me, until I got a restraining order and had her arrested. Hello Reddit I+ here. I honestly don't even know how to begin this. I've never posted something this long before, but I guess I just need to get it off my chest. I still don't know if I feel angry, sad, vindicated, or just completely numb at this point. So, I 28M was kicked out by my mom when I was 17. Not like get your act together kicked out. I mean the kind where you know deep down she wanted you gone for a long time and finally found an excuse to do it. It all started when I was around 13 and she married Steve. At first Steve seemed okay, friendly enough. Gave me a firm handshake when we met and told me, "You're the man of the house until I earn that title." Sounded cool, right? Wrong. That was the last decent moment I ever had with him. Once he moved in, it became obvious that he wanted to erase anything that had to do with my mom's life before him. And that included me. It started subtly. Suddenly my room was too big, so they moved me into the basement, which didn't even have proper insulation. My things started disappearing. Video games, childhood keepsakes, even clothes. At first I thought maybe I misplaced them, or maybe we were just tight on money. But no, my mom was giving things away to make space. Dinner? Made for 4. My mom, Steve, and later the 2 kids they had together. I'd walk in from school to the smell of baked chicken or pasta and find 3 empty plates and 1 in the sink. She'd just shrug and say, "You know how to cook, don't you?" It was like I was a guest in my own house, an inconvenience. I tried to ignore it. I focused on school, got a part-time job at a bookstore, and stayed out of their way. I thought, just make it to 18, just make it to college. But they didn't wait that long. One day, out of nowhere, my mom sat me down. Steve didn't even bother to join the conversation. He was in the kitchen drinking a beer and watching some sports game with the volume up high. She said, and I remember this word for word, "It's time you figured out how to stand on your own. You're almost grown. You can go stay with your dad or a friend. This just isn't working anymore." No emotion, no concern, not even a fake tear. Just cold, like she was firing me from a job. I left with 2 garbage bags full of clothes and a backpack of school supplies. That's it. No money, no ride, no, "I'm sorry." She didn't even come to the door. My dad lived in another state and wasn't exactly reliable. Long story there. But I didn't feel safe going to him. I ended up crashing at a friend's place until I could save up some money. I got lucky. A manager at a nearby diner let me work extra hours washing dishes. I studied my ass off and ended up with a partial scholarship. I worked through college, graduated, and started a small graphic design business. And you know what? Life got better. I met an amazing woman. We built a home together. We had a daughter. I found peace. I rarely thought about my mom or Steve. I hadn't spoken to them in almost a decade. Then, about 8 months ago, I get a call from an unknown number. I never answer those, but for some reason, I did. "Hi, sweetheart," a voice says. It took me a second to even recognize her voice. It had been so long, but there she was, acting like nothing had happened. Like we hadn't gone no contact. Like she hadn't kicked her firstborn child out like a piece of garbage. She made small talk, asked how I was doing, if I had kids now. I kept my answers short, not really sure where this was going. Then she got to the point. Apparently, the twins, my half-siblings, who I haven't spoken to since I left, were heading to college. Steve had lost his job. They were struggling financially, and she was wondering if I'd be willing to help out with tuition. "You're doing so well now," she said in this sugary voice that made my skin crawl. "They really look up to you, you know. You're their big brother. It would mean the world to them." I was stunned. It was like someone had dropped a piano on my chest. I said, "Are you serious right now?" She went quiet for a second, then said, "Excuse me? You kicked me out. You haven't spoken to me in years, and now you want money for the kids you replaced me with?" Her tone turned venomous fast. "I gave you life," she snapped. "I raised you. Don't act like I didn't do my part. You turned your back on us." I hung up. I thought that would be the end of it. Maybe a guilt trip email or 2. I was wrong. That call opened the gates to months of pure hell. First, I started getting strange emails. Some from fake accounts calling me an ungrateful bastard. Others accusing me of being too good to help family. Then it escalated. My business's Google page was hit with fake 1-star reviews. One review said I stole money from clients. Another said I was a predator. All clearly lies, but damaging enough that I had to explain it to a few clients. Then it got personal. My wife got texts from unknown numbers saying I cheated on her, that I had a secret family, that I wasn't who she thought I was. One of them included an old photo of me, taken years ago outside my college dorm. And then the scariest part, I started seeing her, my mom. She showed up outside my daughter's daycare once. I didn't see her, but the staff said there was a woman outside taking pictures of the kids through the fence. When they approached her, she left. No police report was filed because she didn't technically do anything illegal, but they gave me a heads up. Another time, I saw her in the parking lot of my gym, just sitting in a car, watching. When I walked toward her, she sped off. I started documenting everything, every message, every sighting. I installed cameras around my house. Finally, I went to the police and filed for a restraining order. She violated it 2 weeks later by leaving a handwritten note in my mailbox. "I made you. You owe me." That was it. The final nail. I showed it to the police. With the pattern of behavior and documentation, they arrested her for harassment and violating the restraining order, and you'd think that would be the end. But no. Here's the twist. About a month later, I get a call from a social worker. Apparently during the evaluation, because, yeah, they had her do a psych assessment, some new information came out. Steve hadn't lost his job. He had left her for another woman, much younger. He drained their accounts before disappearing. She had nothing. She didn't contact me out of some sudden desire to reconnect or apologize. She contacted me because I was her last option. She didn't love me. She didn't even like me. She needed a lifeline. And when I said no, I became the villain in her story, the ungrateful son who abandoned his family. But here's the thing, they abandoned me. When I was 17 and scared, when I was hungry, when I was working 2 jobs to survive, when I graduated college alone in a crowd of cheering families, they were never there. And now that everything has fallen apart for her, she wants me to clean up the mess. I'm not the backup plan. I'm not the safety net. I'm not the emotional punching bag. I'm the son she threw away. And I'm finally done pretending that didn't happen. I thought maybe, just maybe, there'd be a shred of satisfaction, like finally, justice, consequences, proof that I wasn't crazy or cruel or overreacting. But I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired, hollow, but that wasn't the end of it. Not even close. About 2 weeks later, I got a message request on Facebook. It was from a girl named Jess. Profile pic showed a teenage girl with bright red hair, braces, and a hoodie that said, Class of 2024. I almost didn't open it. Thought it was spam. But something about the name tugged at me. She wrote, "Hi, I'm Jess. I think I'm your sister." I stared at the screen for a long time. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Jess and Jake, the twins. I hadn't seen them since they were toddlers, maybe 3 or 4, and now they were basically adults. I didn't know what to say, but she wasn't done. She followed up. "I found out about the restraining order. Mom told us you were a drug addict and ran away. She said you hated us, that you abandoned the family, that we were better off without you." She attached a screenshot of a message her mom sent her after the arrest. In it, my mom wrote, "Don't believe anything he says. He's been poisoned by lies and hatred. He always blamed you two for ruining his life." My hands were shaking. Then she added, "We only just learned you were kicked out. Jake and I are both in therapy now. Steve, he was never a good dad. He hit her. He hit us. She just never told you. She didn't want you to think less of her, but she also hated that you reminded her of her old life." I swear my heart stopped for a second. I'd always assumed Steve just didn't like me, but hearing that, he'd hurt them, and that my mom knew and still let him erase me from her life, that she let a man like that raise her kids, the same ones she claimed to love so much she stalked me for tuition money. I felt sick. Jess said she didn't want anything from me. She just wanted to know the truth. I told her everything. The basement, the bags, the silence, the betrayal. We talked for hours. She cried. I cried. It felt surreal. She said Jake was still angry, confused, but open to a call. I said I'd be there when he was ready. For the first time in forever, it felt like maybe some good could come out of this. And then came the crash. 3 weeks after that, I got served with papers. My mother was suing me for defamation. She claimed the restraining order and arrest had ruined her reputation, caused her emotional distress, and made it impossible to find work. She wanted financial damages, specifically $75,000. I almost laughed. Then I saw the lawyer's name at the bottom of the page. It was Steve's. Turns out, he hadn't vanished. He'd started his own scummy legal firm, dealing mostly in men's rights custody battles and suing exes for parental alienation. He was representing her. The two of them, who destroyed each other's lives, suddenly teaming up to squeeze money from me, the one person they discarded and forgot. I don't know what their endgame was. Maybe they thought I'd panic and settle. Maybe they hoped I'd drop the restraining order. Maybe it was one last twisted power play. But this time, I didn't break. I hired a great lawyer, presented the judge with everything: texts, voicemails, screenshots, daycare reports, the note in my mailbox. Jess even agreed to testify, saying her mom manipulated and lied to her for years. The case was dismissed before it even hit trial. And then, as a final poetic punch to the gut, Steve was investigated for filing fraudulent legal documents under a suspended license. Apparently, he wasn't even allowed to practice law in the state. That's still unfolding, but yeah, karma moves in mysterious ways. I haven't heard from my mom since. Jake eventually reached out. We met for coffee a month ago. It was awkward, but genuine. He's quiet. He watches people carefully. You can tell he doesn't trust easily, but when I told him I never stopped thinking about them, his eyes watered. He didn't say anything, just nodded. We're rebuilding. Slowly. My daughter now has 2 teenage aunt and uncle figures who she thinks are the coolest people alive. And for once, I feel like I'm not carrying this giant invisible weight everywhere I go. So if you're reading this and you've been hurt by your family, if they made you feel like a villain for putting up boundaries or walking away, let me just say, you're not the villain. You're the survivor. And sometimes, the only way to heal is to let the bridges burn and keep walking forward, even if you do it alone for a while.